Hey, what's up you beautiful feckers? Now in today's video we're taking a look at 3 incredible Warframe crowd control setups that I personally love to run with. Not really the meta of Warframes when it comes to crowd control, but I love these 3 frames. Now as you may or may not know, maybe you're new to the game, but crowd control in Warframe is king once you go up against high level enemies, and plenty of our Warframes are amazing when it comes to crowd control. Some frames of course do it better than others, and some frames have a much higher survivability than others as well, especially when running solo. Now frames like Slow Nova, Chaos Nyx, Stomp Rhino, Irradiated Disarm Loki, a Blind Excalibur or a Blind Mirage, and a Bastille Vauban and some others are insanely good when it comes to crowd control. And the reason that I like these 3 crowd control frames is because of their survivability. I love my tanky Warframes, so these fit my playstyle perfectly. Now they may or may not fit yours, you don't know I guess unless you try them out. So I'll give a quick overview of each of these frames and their builds, or the builds that I run with when using them, and try to keep it as simple as possible for any new players who might want to get these Warframes for their setups at a future date. Now first up is a Warframe that you guys may have seen me running a lot in my recent videos. It is of course Equinox, but more specifically a Peaceful Provocation Nightform Equinox. So the night form of Equinox is what you need for this augment to have that crowd control capability. Now with this setup, Equinox and a Pacify ability can get a debuff that will slow enemies down by up to as much as 80%, almost a complete standstill. And because Equinox's Pacify ability also reduces the damage you take depending on how close you are to enemies, it makes this setup an incredibly fun one to run with, whether solo or in a squad, because your survivability is great. And because this speed reduction also slows down the enemy's attack speed, it means that you won't be getting shot at as much, and you will have much more time to react to any enemy that might be in front of you, whether it's a butcher or a melee enemy, or even a bombard or something that runs around the corner. You will have time to take them out before they get a shot off. Now this is my current build for my Peaceful Provocation Equinox. Remember to mod however you prefer. Once it fits your playstyle, then who the feck cares. Now I know some Equinox players love to run with energy conversion equipped to increase their power strength, and it is an option for you if you prefer to have it in your build. I prefer to not have to rely on an energy orb before casting any ability, but that is just personal preference, so run with whatever you prefer. Now in simple terms, you want 200% power strength and as much range as you are comfortable with, and the closer you get to enemies, the less damage you will take. And because Nightform Equinox also has that heal as an ultimate ability, if you find your health dropping down, then simply cast Mend, then do some damage and release Mend in order to heal yourself back up to full health and continue on with your killing. So that is my Peaceful Provocation Equinox. Make sure to check it out if you enjoyed that type of playstyle. Now the second frame of my crowd control favourites is of course Mr. Muscle, the ice cold Viking himself, Frost. And his crowd control setup for me involves his augment for Ice Wave, which is Ice Wave Impotence. With this augment, your Ice Wave will leave behind a trail or a patch of frost that slows enemies down who step onto it. You can have multiple ice patches down in an area, which will maximise the amount of enemies that you can affect with this slow effect and make most of your missions a walk in the park. It is insanely good. Now duration, range and efficiency is what you're aiming for with this build, not really power strength. With this setup you can also use Frost's Avalanche, which is his ultimate, to your advantage if things get a little bit too hectic, but it won't deal that much damage. It is just simply being used for crowd control. And like I said, having several Ice Wave patches down is an incredible way to control your battlefield. Now Ice Wave Impotence also synergizes incredibly well in a group with a lot of other Warframe abilities. Add another Warframe to your squad that has another slow ability like say a Slow Nova, and watch as this helps bring enemies to a complete standstill. Or watch Nidus's little maggots go to town on them as they're stuck on the ice patch. It is really effective. However, nullifiers will remove those patches of ice, so make them your #1 priority when laying down your ice patches. Kill those nullifiers as quickly as possible, or at higher levels your enemies will just begin to run rampant and start to kill you really quickly. Now Frost's Globe with this build will be enormous, but it can be used to push enemies back away from you or an objective, and it can also be used as a quick shot blocker. Like if you wanted to block a rocket or a napalm or whatever was shooting at you from a distance, then you can just quickly cast Globe, but it will only eat one shot and then it will probably dissolve depending on the level of the enemies that you're up against. So that is my Frost Icewave Impedance build. Now if you like the look of that playstyle, then by all means check it out. Remember to mod to suit your own playstyle. Once you're having fun, then who the feck cares. Next up is another setup of mine that's used for pure crowd control and not really damage output. I normally use this when in a full squad. This is my Capacitance Volt. So Volt's ultimate, which is Discharge, isn't exactly a great damage dealer, and by that I guess I mean that there are other frames that have much better ultimates when it comes to pure damage dealing madness than Volt, but Volt's Discharge definitely has its limitations. Now the effectiveness of Volt's Discharge changes completely when you add in the Capacitance Augment into your build. So Capacitance is a Warframe augment mod for Volt that converts a percentage of damage dealt by your discharge and returns it to you as shields split between you and your squad mates. Now with enough enemies caught in the discharge radius, you can expect to give yourself and your squad a lot of overshield. In fact, expect to max that out, which is the purple shield that you see on my Volt on screen right now. So overshield is basically you getting more than the amount of shields that you have on your build. Now the good thing about this build is that with enough efficiency you can also pick up Volt's Riot Shield and have that extra bit of survivability mixed in with that crowd control of his ultimate, so you can have that shield in front of you to block incoming shots. But how you go about modding your build for your Volt is entirely up to you. Efficiency, range would be the two key stats for me when modding my Capacitance Volt. Then it's all about finding the right mix of duration and power strength so as to make the most out of your other abilities if you need to use them. But I also have a second build for my Capacitance Volt, which is a negative power strength max range build, which works wonders for crowd control, so power strength might not be too much of a requirement when building for a crowd control Volt and not so much damage. But again, that's entirely up to you how you go about modding your build. Now remember, these are my builds, so they may or may not fit your playstyle, but look at them more of a rough guide for how you might want to build your crowd control Warframe. The key here is to have as much fun as possible. Once you're having that, then who gives a feck, right? It's your game, enjoy it. Let me know what your go-to crowd control Warframe is in Warframe. Even if it's not any of these three, it might be some of the ones I mentioned at the start of the video. Maybe it's a Vauban or a Nova or even a Loki, who is probably the easiest Warframe to run with in the game right now and makes almost all content completely trivial, to the extent that a lot of veteran players would say that he's probably broken. Full cheese mode activated Loki, yep, definitely. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more Warframe, and as always, thanks very much for watching.